What'd you like out of Ethan? I know it's his first snaps as a college player.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. A true freshman to go in the game at that point, I forget his number. Was he 3 for 5, maybe, right?
So.
But you see the moxie that we've kind of talked about all along, and you use that word. It's so subjective, right? You know what I mean? It's hard to sit there and say what exactly does that mean.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got a confidence, he's got a bravado. He goes out there in the fourth quarter of a game. You got a chance to go down and you know what I mean, and get back into the game. And he doesn't blink. He doesn't wince. And there's one time in particular where there was a pressure that had ended up coming free, but made a mistake up front, and he avoids it, and steps up and scrambles, and for a big gain, you're like, it's great, and those are things that I call them garbage yards, but when you look at successful offenses and teams, they're full of those kind of yards where quarterbacks just take off and scramble. For him to do that, it's awesome. So I'm pumped for him.
Lance said it was going to be hard to sort of try to plan for him to come in just because of how that can be tough. I guess, were there any moments earlier this season where you thought he might get a run, or was this really the first true opportunity?
When you're the backup quarterback, you're always one snap away, right? So there are how many ever weeks that he had been the backup quarterback. That was the case for him. But though there was no concerted, okay, hey, series 2,
yeah,
right? Okay, he's going to go in. There was none of that. You know what I mean? There's those kind of discussions.
I saw a stat over the weekend that you guys have the most explosive plays were like 20 yards in the country. What has allowed you guys to do that with the changing quarterback, different wide receivers, different running backs? What's allowed you guys to do that?
Well, I think the stat is explosive plays per play run. You know what I mean? The percentage, right? What's allowed it is the players, right? I think, one, the ability to be able to establish a run game in games matters a lot, to where that you can then set up play actions or whatever it might be to be able to get behind people. Still the most explosive playing football is a vertically thrown football. And that'll be true for a long, long time. And so to have that, to be able to generate explosives in the run game, certainly the line play, the tight end play, the running back play, the receivers, perimeter blocking, usually gains of 10 and 11 turn into gains of 20 plus when there's great perimeter blocking, right? And then, some of the option stuff, right? So I think all those things combined allow you to be explosive. And if you remember, I think maybe last spring, guys, we talked about the evolution that we need to take as an offense and really focusing on being more explosive and finishing drive with points. And so you can see that there are still moments where bad football shows up and it's causing us to, stall out on drives or causing us games, candidly. And so we have to make sure that stuff is shored up, right? But we wanted to be a concerted effort on being more explosive in offense.
Maybe you hit it there, but Leipold talked about, I think, after the game, saying that big plays were there, consistency down to down maybe wasn't. How do you find that or cultivate that over the course of this season and just in years ahead?
Well, experience and attention to detail would be the two things. So experience for the players to understand why the attention to detail matters. And when you look out there, there's still a lot of guys who are in their second year of eligibility, and that's exciting for our future. And there's still growth. There's still guys who are playing out there and playing significant snaps who are still in their first year of being a starter. And with that, we're excited about the future. But with that still comes, quote unquote, growing pains, right? And then, I think I've said this before, but you hate those moments as a coach. We say, hey, I told you so here, right? The attention to detail, the focus. So those are things that when you want to sustain drives, and it's hard for offenses to go on 15, 20 play drives. And I think defensive coordinators know that, because inevitably something will happen negative for the offense. It's hard to have 15 plays that are all positive for the offense, because usually, there's an explosive in there that usually results in a touchdown. So it's hard to go on those long drives and not have something that happens where it's going to set you back and put you behind the sticks like it did a couple times last week. And so we need to make sure that we're paying attention to detail. We're focused for those extended drives so that we can finish them.
You guys have been a very highly penalized offense this season. I think over the last 2 weeks there's been a procedural thing and then false starts, holdings. What do you think has contributed to maybe more uptick in that the last 2 weeks?
Whether you really had an exact answer and knew, the solution would be super easy. Unfortunately, it's just probably a matter of poor timing. Someone's tired or lost focus in a certain moment, or maybe it's a crappy play call or something. Whatever, right? And so it's always given the plane crash right, chapter before about how it's usually just a series of little things, right? He was in the huddle late and he heard it wrong, you know, or whatever it might be. You know, you're not making excuses. And again, going back to our players and myself, when you ask them, they're the first ones to be accountable for a mistake that's made. And I love looking in the room on a Monday and hearing guys say that. And I think that there's a lot of ownership amongst the coaches as well, right? I got to be better for all of them. And but for them to nod their head and be like, yeah, gosh, I messed that up. You know what I mean? And recognize that instead of being defensive. We don't want our guys to be defensive, and they're not. And I'm excited for them because they want to keep growing.
I think Lance said yesterday that Jason's kind of a we'll see situation right now. I wonder if you have any update on his availability or how he's doing.
No more than what coach has said. He's
Okay.
been out there. They're practicing. It's been going good.
So okay.
Everything's kind of a we'll see still.
Sure. And then following on that, if he can't go, or if Jalen can go and you do go with him, or if it's Vasco or whoever, right? I mean, is there something to be said about, you know, this team's already made that transition from having to go from a starting quarterback in the beginning of the season to another guy, and then if you have to do it again, even if it's going back, there's more readiness for that?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. So what you're talking about perhaps is a team not panicking when there's a position change or a personnel change at a position, and 100%, and that happens in football every week and every season that somehow there's a personnel change, and you say this and it's almost cliche, but the next man up attitude. I think with how we practice and how we do things and the reps that we get, and to prepare for those things that our guys understand. Hey, whoever the 11 guys are in the field, it doesn't really matter. The expectations are the expectations, and the standards are the standards. And we can uphold those standards because of how we've practiced. We've seen guys go out there and do that, as I've expressed before, identifying what the limitations and capabilities of all the players are to be able to get enough reps to be able to say that, and the kids can be confident in the huddle, whoever's in there, to say that what we're doing is going to be the best that they can do, right? So no panic, yeah. You know what I mean? They're used to, hey, and we personnel the heck all year long, right? We got a bazillion different ways to get guys in the field. So, like, who's in the huddle today? You know what I mean? Let's go. Here we go, right?
Andy, what are you seeing from Texas